I never thought mowing my lawn 10 minutes late would lead to my house burning down. But when your HOA president is a woman named Karen with a clipboard and a grudge, even a blade of grass can become a weapon. I should have known she was dangerous the moment she smiled at me that first morning. The summer heat in Maple Hollow, Texas could melt patience faster than ice cream on asphalt. Our little cul-de-sac was the kind of place people described as quiet and respectable. Fresh-cut lawns, pastel mailboxes, American flags waving in sync, the suburban dream. When my wife and I bought our house there 3 years ago, we thought we'd made it. I worked construction management. She was a nurse. We weren't rich, but we had earned this place. A modest, single-story home with a porch swing and a view of the oak trees that line the street. That peace lasted exactly 4 days. That's when Karen Westfield, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, showed up on our doorstep, clutching a clipboard and a smile that looked more like a threat wrapped in lipstick. "Welcome to Maple Hollow," she chirped. "I'm the HOA president. Just wanted to drop by and remind you about a few community standards." She handed me a printed packet, 30 pages thick, color-coded like a college syllabus. No approved exterior paint colors, no basketball hoops visible from the street, no flags unless pre-approved, and, lawns must be mowed every Friday before 6 p.m. I laughed, thinking she was joking. "You're serious?" Her smile didn't move. Completely. That was Karen. Perfect hair, pastel cardigan even in 95-degree heat, and a voice that could make the word neighbor sound like a court summons. The first warning. A week later, I came home from a long shift to find a bright orange violation notice taped to my front door. Grass length exceeds HOA standards, Section 2.3. Please comply within 24 hours or face a $150 fine. The irony, it was raining that entire day. I walked next door, still in my muddy work boots, and found Karen watering her already perfect rose bushes. "Karen, you taped a violation notice on my door in the rain while it was raining?" She didn't look up. "Rules are rules, Mr. Turner. If we start making exceptions, this place turns into a jungle." "A jungle? My grass is 4 inches tall." She gave me that tight smile again. 4.5. I swear I could hear my blood boil louder than the cicadas. That night, my wife laughed it off. "Just ignore her, Ben. Some people need control to feel alive." I tried. I really did. But Karen didn't stop. The harassment begins. It started small, petty fines, passive-aggressive notes. Then came the pictures. One morning, I checked my mailbox and found printed photos of my yard taken from different angles, like evidence in a trial. One even had a timestamp, 6:01 a.m. Karen's signature was at the bottom. My wife said I was overreacting. "It's just HOA stuff," she'd say. "We'll pay the fines and move on." But there was something deeper about Karen, something personal. She'd show up unannounced, inspecting the neighborhood. She'd linger near our driveway longer than necessary, snapping pictures on her phone. Once, I caught her peeking through the gap in our backyard fence. When I confronted her, she said, "Just checking for compliance issues." I said, "You're trespassing." She smirked. "Not if I'm standing on HOA property." The breaking point. The final straw came 2 months later. Our dog Max, a golden retriever with more energy than sense, loved digging in the garden. One day, Karen snapped a photo of him outside and sent us a letter accusing us of maintaining an uncontained animal hazard. I called her that night. "You're out of your mind if you think my dog is a hazard." Karen's tone was sharp. "The HOA board meets tomorrow. I'll bring it up." "Then bring it up," I said, trying to stay calm, "because if this keeps up, I'll start documenting your violations too." There was silence on the line. Then she whispered, "Is that a threat, Mr. Turner?" "No, Karen, that's a promise." She hung up. The setup. The next morning, my lawn sprinkler system was smashed. My security camera wiring cut clean. Coincidence? Maybe. But my gut said otherwise. That weekend, I went to the HOA meeting determined to defend myself. It was held in the local recreation center, folding chairs, bad coffee, fluorescent lighting. The air smelled like stale donuts in fake civility. Karen sat at the head of the table, flanked by her loyal board members, all smiling, all quiet. "Mr. Turner," she said sweetly, "you've accumulated 5 violations this quarter. Lawn height, trash cans visible from the curb, unapproved exterior light fixtures." "Those fixtures came with the house," I interrupted. "Then perhaps you bought the wrong house," she said. The room chuckled. I looked around. Neighbors avoided eye contact, some shrugged, others whispered. No one spoke up. That's when I realized Karen didn't run the HOA, she ruled it. The first fire. 2 weeks later, I woke at 2 a.m. to the smell of smoke. At first, I thought it was a barbecue gone wrong. Then I heard the crackle. The side of my garage was on fire. I ran outside barefoot, yelling for my wife. We grabbed the hose, trying to douse the flames before they spread. The fire department arrived minutes later, but it was too late. Half the garage was gone. The investigators ruled it accidental, electrical. But I knew. The day after, Karen walked by my driveway. No words, just that same plastic smile. "You should really check your wiring," she said. "Old homes like these can be dangerous." Then she winked. The evidence. I started documenting everything. Pictures, dates, texts. I installed new security cameras, hidden ones this time. Days passed. Weeks. Nothing. Then one night I saw her. Karen, in her pink jogging outfit, walking past my driveway at 11:47 p.m. carrying something. Metallic. The next morning, I found lighter fluid stains near my back fence. I took the footage to the local police. They said it wasn't clear enough for charges. "Could be coincidence," the officer said. "No direct proof she did anything." I wanted to scream. Karen was untouchable. She knew every bylaw, every loophole. She weaponized the HOA's power like a personal army. But I promised myself the next time I'd be ready. That next time came faster than I ever imagined, because on a cold November night, while my wife and I were out for dinner, my phone buzzed with an alert from my new cameras. Motion detected. Backyard. I opened the app. The screen went black. Signal lost. We drove home fast. Too fast. When we turned the corner, I saw it. Flames licking the sky. Orange light reflecting off every car window on the street. My house. Our home. Gone. Neighbors stood outside, covering their mouths. Firefighters fought the blaze, but it was hopeless. Karen was there too, standing across the street, arms crossed, watching. When she saw me, she didn't look shocked. She looked satisfied. The night my house burned down, I learned what silence truly sounds like. It wasn't the sirens or the crackle of burning wood that haunted me. It was the pause after the fire was out. That moment when all that's left is steam, smoke, and the echo of everything you've lost. The aftermath. By the time the fire department gave us the all clear, dawn was breaking over Maple Hollow. Ash floated in the air like gray snowflakes, settling on the blackened remains of what used to be our home. My wife stood beside me, wrapped in a blanket someone from the Red Cross had handed her. I just stared. Our porch swing was gone. Our wedding photos were gone. Even Max's favorite chew toy, the one shaped like a little football, was melted into a lump of rubber near the driveway. I remember the fire chief walking over, his helmet still slick with condensation. "Mr. Turner," he said gently, "I'm sorry for your loss. We believe the fire started near the back fence. Possible accelerant." That word hit me like a nail to the chest. "Accelerant?" I repeated. He nodded. "We'll send samples to the lab. Could be arson. You might want to contact your insurance and—" But I wasn't listening anymore. I was staring at Karen. She was across the street, talking to an officer, gesturing toward my yard like she owned the scene. I could read her lips as she spoke. "He's been having electrical issues." When she saw me looking, she smiled and waved. The investigation begins. The next few days were a blur of insurance calls, temporary motel rooms, and police interviews. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Marla Ruiz, was sharp, mid-40s, practical, and not easily swayed by HOA drama. "Mr. Turner," she said during our first meeting, "you mentioned a history of disputes with your HOA president, correct?" "Disputes?" I laughed bitterly. "She's been harassing us for months. Photos, fines, threats. I've got everything documented." "Good," she said, jotting notes. "I'll need those records." I handed over my USB drive, security footage, letters, timestamps, everything. She plugged it into her laptop and watched silently. When she reached the clip from 3 nights before the fire, Karen walking near my fence with what looked like a metal can, she paused the video. "Did you confront her about this?" "Yes. The police said it wasn't enough proof." Detective Ruiz frowned. They were wrong. The neighbors turned. When you lose your home, you learn quickly who your real friends are. Some neighbors dropped off meals. Others just watched from their porches, whispering. At the HOA meeting held a week after the fire, yes, they still held one, Karen stood at the front like a politician at a victory rally. "I think it's important," she announced, "that we remind everyone of the importance of electrical maintenance. Fires like this are tragic, but preventable." I was there, sitting in the back in a borrowed jacket because mine had burned. My hands clenched so tight the chair arms creaked. I stood up. "You don't get to stand there and pretend this was an accident." Her eyes locked onto mine, calm, confident, cold. "Benjamin," she said, tilting her head, "are you accusing me of something?" "You know exactly what I'm accusing you of." The room went silent. She let out a small laugh. "I understand you're emotional, but spreading false claims could expose you to legal consequences." There it was, that quiet threat again, hidden beneath a smile. I stormed out before I said something I'd regret. A break in the case. A week later, Detective Ruiz called. "Mr. Turner, can you come down to the station? We found something." My heart pounded the entire drive there. In the evidence room, she showed me a small clear plastic bag. Inside was a charred piece of metal, a cap from a can of lighter fluid. It was near the origin point of the fire. The lab confirmed traces of accelerant matching commercial-grade lighter fuel. I swallowed hard. So it was arson. Yes, and there's more. She pulled out a printout of digital timestamps. Your HOA president's phone was active near your address between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, about a half hour before the fire started. I felt the rush of anger so strong my vision blurred. "Can we arrest her?" Ruiz sighed. "Not yet. The DA needs more direct evidence, but we're close. I've seen patterns like this. Power, control, obsession. She won't stop unless she's confronted." I leaned forward. "Then let's confront her." The mind games. Karen must have sensed the investigation tightening around her, so she started acting friendly. She sent me a sympathy card. A sympathy card.
Signed, wishing you peace during this difficult time. HOA President Karen W. I almost laughed when I read it. Then came the calls. Karen, I heard about the insurance delays. So awful. Maybe I can recommend a contractor. Every time her number flashed on my phone, my stomach twisted. I recorded every call. One night, I finally picked up. Karen, I said, why are you doing this? Doing what? Being neighborly? You burned down my house. A pause. Then, that's a serious accusation. Be careful, Ben. I'd hate for you to make things worse for yourself. Click. That's when I realized something chilling. She wasn't just trying to punish me, she was enjoying it. The insurance trap. Our insurance company started hesitating on the payout. Mr. Turner, the agent said over the phone, we're receiving conflicting reports. Your HOA president claims the fire may have started from illegal wiring modifications. Illegal what? She submitted a complaint with photographs. My stomach dropped. Karen had filed a report after the fire, claiming I had rewired part of my garage without permits. The photos she submitted? Edited. The timestamps didn't even match. But it was enough to slow down the claim. I met with Ruiz again. She's trying to starve us out financially. Ruiz nodded grimly. Classic tactic. Keep the victim busy, exhausted, broke. But she slipped. She submitted those photos under her personal email. That means we can subpoena her metadata. Finally, a crack in her perfect mask. The turning point. Weeks passed. The lab confirmed the metadata linked the photos directly to Karen's home computer. Ruiz moved fast. A search warrant. Evidence seized. I wasn't there when they raided her house, but I'll never forget what Ruiz told me later. She had a folder labeled Compliance Cases. Inside, photos of every house in the neighborhood, notes, dates, and a subfolder titled Turner. My blood ran cold. She documented you for months, Ruiz said. Every interaction, every photo, every call. Obsessive behavior. Then came the bombshell. They also found 3 empty cans of lighter fluid in her garage. That was it. The DA filed charges: arson, harassment, and malicious property damage. Karen Westfield, the untouchable HOA president of Maple Hollow, was arrested in her pearl necklace and pressed slacks right in front of her roses. The neighborhood finally had something new to whisper about. The build-up to court. The weeks before trial felt like a strange calm. I rented a small apartment nearby. I went back to work, tried to rebuild, but I still drove by the charred lot every evening. The smell of ash was gone, but the memory wasn't. Sometimes I'd find Karen's friends, her little HOA loyalists, glaring at me as I passed. One even muttered, "You ruined her life." I wanted to shout back, "She ruined mine first." But I didn't. I saved it all for court. The court date. The courthouse in Denton County was small. Beige walls, humming fluorescents, the faint smell of coffee and disinfectant. The day of the preliminary hearing, I sat near the back with Ruiz. Then she walked in. Karen, still perfectly dressed, still smiling. And when the judge called her name, she glanced over her shoulder, straight at me. Her expression said everything. You think you've won? You haven't. The judge set the trial for the following month. As she walked past me to leave, she leaned just close enough to whisper, "This neighborhood won't forgive you, Ben. You'll always be the man who brought Maple Hollow down." I didn't answer, but I remember thinking, "No, Karen, I'll be the man who finally stopped you."
The first day of the trial felt like walking into a movie I never auditioned for. I wasn't the hero. I wasn't even the victim anymore. I was the man who dared to take down the HOA queen, and everyone in Maple Hollow came to watch the show. The courtroom divides. The courtroom in Denton County was small but packed. Half the seats were filled with reporters and curious locals. The other half, my old neighbors. Most of them weren't there to support me. They sat behind Karen like loyal parishioners, whispering, passing tissues, giving her sympathetic looks. She sat at the defense table in her cream blazer and pearl earrings, posture perfect, hair curled into submission. Her lawyer, a slick man named Gerald Whitmore, leaned over and whispered to her with a smile that said, "Money buys innocence." My lawyer, Melissa Crane, was younger but sharper. She'd taken one look at the evidence Ruiz collected and said, "Ben, we've got this. Just don't lose your temper in there." I nodded, but inside, my nerves buzzed like a live wire. When the judge entered, everyone rose. "State of Texas versus Karen Westfield," the bailiff announced. Just hearing her name under "State versus" was enough to make me exhale. Finally, someone else saw what I had lived through. The opening statements. The prosecutor, District Attorney Liam Porter, began with steady confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, pacing slowly, "this is a case about power, about how a position of community trust was twisted into a tool of control and eventually destruction. The evidence will show that the defendant, out of obsession and malice, deliberately set fire to the home of her neighbor, Benjamin Turner." He paused, letting the words sink in. "She didn't just burn a house, she burned a family's sense of safety." Then came Whitmore's turn. "Members of the jury," he said, oozing charm, "this case is built on bitterness, not facts. Mr. Turner here has a history of conflict with the HOA. The prosecution will show that he ignored community standards, violated rules, and now seeks revenge by blaming Miss Westfield for an unfortunate accident." He turned to me, gesturing like I was the villain. A man angry enough to threaten legal action, angry enough to yell in public meetings, angry enough to imagine an arsonist where there was none. Karen dabbed her eyes with a tissue, perfectly timed. I clenched my fist. Melissa whispered, "Let it go. They're painting you emotional. Don't give them proof." So I stared at the table and swallowed every ounce of rage. The evidence unfolds. Detective Ruiz took the stand first. She walked the jury through everything: the accelerant residue, the lighter fluid cap, the cell tower pings, and finally the computer metadata linking the fake photos to Karen's home network. Whitmore tried to rattle her. "Detective, isn't it possible someone else in the neighborhood used the same brand of lighter fluid?" "Possible, yes, but the defendant also had the same brand in her garage, and the timestamps align within minutes of the fire's ignition." The jurors scribbled notes. Karen's lawyer smirked, but I saw the unease in his eyes. When Ruiz stepped down, the prosecutor called me. On the stand. I'd faced angry contractors, failed inspections, even workplace injuries, but nothing prepared me for sitting under oath while the woman who destroyed my life stared at me like I was a liar. The prosecutor asked, "Mr. Turner, can you describe your history with the defendant?" I told them everything: the fines, the harassment, the photos, the threats. The jury listened quietly, but I could see some doubt. It sounded unbelievable, even to me. Then they showed the footage. Karen walking near my fence at midnight. Karen carrying something metallic. Karen watching my burning house across the street. The courtroom was dead silent. Then the defense rose. "Mr. Turner, you claim Miss Westfield harassed you, yet she was merely enforcing HOA guidelines. Could it be that your resentment blinded you?" "No," I said firmly. He paced. "You once said to her, quote, 'You'll regret this,' didn't you?" "I did," I admitted. He turned to the jury. "So you threatened her?" "I warned her," I said, leaning forward. "I warned her to stop. I didn't threaten her life.
I begged her to leave us alone." He smiled. "Begging and threatening, such similar tones when anger's involved, don't you think?" I didn't answer. He'd gotten what he wanted, a shadow of doubt. Karen's turn. When Karen took the stand, she transformed into a saint. Her voice trembled, her eyes shimmered with perfectly timed tears. "I've always loved our community. I just wanted to keep it beautiful, safe, and orderly. Mr. Turner was confrontational. I was afraid of him." Her lawyer asked, "Did you ever threaten or harm Mr. Turner?" "Of course not," she said, clutching her pearls. "I prayed for him every night after the fire." Someone in the audience murmured, "Bless her heart." Then came the cross-examination. Melissa approached, calm but surgical. "Miss Westfield, you said you were at home the night of the fire." "Yes." "Alone?" "Yes." "You didn't leave your property at any time?" "No." Melissa tapped a file on her desk. "Then how do you explain this?" She displayed the cell tower data. Karen's phone pinged within 200 feet of my property minutes before the fire. Karen froze, then stammered. I might have taken a walk. I do that sometimes when I can't sleep." "A midnight stroll? In November?" "It helps me think." "And the lighter fluid cans found in your garage?" I used them for the grill." Melissa leaned closer. 3 cans? In winter?" The courtroom buzzed. Cameron's mask cracked just slightly, a twitch near her mouth. A witness appeared. Then something unexpected happened. A man in his 60s, Mr. Dawson, stood up from the gallery. "Your Honor," he said nervously, I have something to say." The judge frowned. "Sir, are you a witness?" "No, but I live 2 houses down from the Turners. I saw something the night of the fire." The courtroom erupted. They swore him in. "I was taking my trash out around 11:45. I saw Miss Westfield's car parked near the Turner's house. She was walking toward the back fence with a bag." Cameron's lawyer objected. Hearsay, unreliable witness, whatever he could throw. But the damage was done. The jury watched Karen now like a hawk watches a mouse. The mirror cracked. After that, Karen began unraveling. She whispered harshly to her lawyer, shaking her head. Her once perfect posture wilted under the weight of every eye in the room. When court adjourned for the day, she turned toward me as deputies escorted her out. "You'll regret this, Ben," she hissed under her breath. "You think you're safe now, but you've made enemies." Her voice didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like prophecy. Ruiz touched my arm. "She's losing control. That's good for us." But part of me didn't feel relief, only dread. Because people like Karen didn't surrender. They plotted. The night before the verdict. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my truck outside the motel, engine off, replaying every moment. The fire, the courtroom, her smile. I kept wondering, what if she walked free? I checked my phone. A message from an unknown number. "You destroyed Maple Hollow. I hope it was worth it." No name, no reply option. Maybe it was one of her supporters. Maybe it was her. Either way, I knew one thing. No matter the verdict, life in that neighborhood would never be the same. The final day of testimony. The next morning, the courtroom was standing room only. Karen looked exhausted, but still defiant. I think she believed charm would save her. But Melissa had one last move. She played the voicemail Karen accidentally left on my phone weeks before the fire. Her voice muffled but clear enough to hear. "He thinks he can threaten me. I'll teach him what happens when you defy the HOA." Gasps filled the room. Karen's face went white. Even Whitmore looked blindsided. Melissa leaned toward the jury. No further questions. Karen tried to speak, to explain, but the judge silenced her. That was the moment the tide turned. Waiting on justice.
The jury deliberated for 6 hours. 6 hours that felt like 6 years. I sat in the hallway, tapping my foot, my wife holding my hand. Neither of us spoke. Finally, the bailiff appeared. Verdict's in. We filed back inside. The air was electric, heavy, still. Karen wouldn't look at me. The foreperson stood, paper trembling slightly. We, the jury, find the defendant, Karen Westfield, guilty of arson in first degree, harassment, and malicious property damage. A sound escaped my throat, half sigh, half sob. Karen's hand shook as the bailiff cuffed her. She turned once more toward me. No tears, no apologies, just pure, seething.
The week after the town meeting, my life started unraveling, piece by piece. The HOA meetings, once just annoying background noise, now turned into public trials, and I was always the defendant. Karen had everyone wrapped around her finger. She smiled, patted shoulders, told stories about keeping our community beautiful, and then slipped in phrases like, "Some residents have been non-compliant. Some people think rules don't apply to them." Every time she said "some residents," eyes turned toward me. I used to think small-town gossip was harmless, but in an HOA with power, gossip became gasoline. The targeting intensifies. Within a week, 3 notices appeared on my door. Trash bins visible from the street, unauthorized tree trimming, driveway oil stain. The oil stain came from her car when she stopped in front of my driveway to scold me the previous week. I tried to stay calm. Document everything, my attorney friend Mike told me over the phone. So I did. Photos, dates, times, copies of every letter. But what I didn't realize was that Karen wasn't just trying to find me. She was trying to break me. She wanted me gone. The night the cameras went up, I came home one evening to find 2 men installing something on the lamppost across the street. A black SUV with tinted windows idled nearby. "Hey," I shouted, "what's that for?" One of the men didn't even look at me. "HOA security upgrade, sir." "Funny," I said, walking closer. "No one voted for a security upgrade." That's when I saw the sticker, "Property of Willow Creek HOA," and below it, President Karen Mathers. They were aiming cameras at my property. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt like an accusation. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the camera's red light blink across the street like a warning. The breaking point. 2 nights later, around 2 a.m., I woke up to my dog, Baxter, barking like his life depended on it. Then I smelled it. Smoke. I rushed downstairs. The kitchen was fine, the living room was fine, but through the window I saw the reflection of flames. My garage was on fire. "Baxter, out!" I shouted, grabbing my phone. 911. By the time I ran outside, the flames had already climbed up the side of the house. My hand shook as I turned the hose on, but it was useless. The fire hissed and roared like it was alive. Within minutes, neighbors started gathering. Some filmed, some yelled for help. And there she was, Karen. Bathrobe, coffee mug, fake shock painted across her face. "Oh my God, what happened?" she cried. I looked right at her. "You tell me, Karen." Her face flickered with something. Guilt? No. Satisfaction. The aftermath. The fire department said it was electrical, but I knew better. There was no power source where the fire started, the side of the garage where I kept my old lawn tools. When I walked through the wreckage the next morning, something shiny caught my eye. A charred gas can. Not mine. The cops took it, promised to look into it. Karen appeared that afternoon, clipboard in hand. "I'm so sorry for your loss, John, but the HOA does require cleanup within 14 days to avoid penalties." I laughed. I laughed in disbelief. My house just burned down, Karen. She smiled that tight, fake smile. Rules are rules. I don't make them. Yes, you do, I said quietly. She just turned and walked away. The investigation. Mike, my friend and attorney, didn't waste time. He brought in a private fire investigator, a grizzled man named Ray with 30 years in the job. He spent hours combing through debris, taking samples, muttering to himself. When he was done, he looked at me and said, "This wasn't an accident." He found traces of accelerant on the exterior wall and footprints in the ash. Size 7 women's sneakers. The next day, Mike got a call from the sheriff's office. They'd found matching accelerant residue on Karen's gardening gloves. She said it was from weed killer. HOA under fire. News spread fast. Local reporters showed up. HOA president suspected of arson. The headlines read. Neighbors whispered, avoided eye contact, or quietly slipped apology notes into my mailbox. But Karen didn't back down. She doubled down. She claimed I burned my own house for insurance. She's insane, I told Mike. Why would I destroy my own life just to spite her? Because that's her game. She needs to turn the story before it turns on her. The letter. A week later, I got a certified letter from the HOA. Due to violation of property maintenance standards, your lot is subject to removal from HOA protection and potential seizure. They were trying to take my land. That's when I snapped. I went down to the HOA office, a small beige building at the edge of the neighborhood, and demanded to see Karen. She was sitting behind her desk, calm as ever. "John, if you're here to yell, you can leave." "Yell? No, I'm here to make sure you never hurt anyone again. Threatening me won't help your case." "I'm not threatening, I'm promising." The hidden footage. 2 days later, I got a call from the investigator. "You're gonna want to see this." He sent me a link to security footage, one of the new HOA cameras Karen had installed. The timestamp? 1:47 a.m., 10 minutes before the fire started. Karen, walking across my lawn, carrying something heavy. Then, a faint flash of light. She forgot to delete her own evidence. I sent the footage to the sheriff's office. Within 24 hours, a warrant was issued for her arrest. When the deputies showed up at her house, she didn't even resist, just folded her hands and said, "You have no idea what you're doing." Arrested. As they drove her away, I watched from the sidewalk. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Kids whispered. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since before this nightmare began. Peace. But even then, deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the kind of person who stayed quiet. And if there was one thing I had learned, it's that she'd rather go down swinging than admit defeat. It had been 6 months since the fire. 6 months of rebuilding my life from a pile of ash. I rented a small apartment a few miles away, barely large enough for me and Baxter. Most of my savings were tied up in insurance negotiations and legal fees, but I didn't care about the money anymore. All I wanted was to see her, Karen Mathers, finally face what she'd done. The courtroom. The courthouse smelled like polished wood and old air conditioning, the kind of place where time slows down and justice feels heavy. When I walked in, the first thing I saw was Karen sitting at the defendant's table. Hair perfect, nails done, dressed like she was there for a business meeting, not an arson trial. She didn't look at me, but when she finally did, it wasn't anger. It was pity, like I was the one who'd lost control. Her attorney stood beside her, flipping through paperwork. Mine, Mike, nodded at me from the front row. "Stay calm. Let the truth do the talking," he whispered. The evidence unfolded. The prosecutor started with the basics, photos of the house before the fire, then after. charred beams, melted tools, the gas can. Then came the security footage. The room went silent when Karen appeared on screen, walking across my lawn at 1:47 a.m., carrying a canister. The faint glint of the lighter's flame caught everyone's attention. The jury leaned forward, Karen's face drained of color. Her attorney objected, tried to claim the footage was inconclusive, but the timestamp matched the fire department's records to the minute. Then came Ray, the fire investigator. He spoke with calm authority, explaining accelerant residue, burn patterns, footprints, every detail pointing straight to her. By the time he stepped down, the jury didn't need convincing. They'd seen enough. Karen takes the stand. Her attorney must have thought she could charm them, like she did the HOA board. But the moment she opened her mouth, it all fell apart. "I was just checking on his property. I smelled something burning and—" Before the fire started, the prosecutor interrupted. She hesitated. "Well, I thought I might have seen smoke. No smoke was visible for another 10 minutes, according to the footage." Her composure cracked. "You don't understand what it's like trying to manage this neighborhood. He was a problem for months." "A problem you tried to burn out of existence?" The courtroom gasped. Karen's jaw tightened. Her lawyer buried his face in his hands. The verdict. The jury deliberated for only 2 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and read the words that felt like oxygen in my lungs. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of arson in first degree." I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just breathed. Karen didn't move, didn't blink. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair and kind eyes, said, "Ms. Mathers, your actions were not only reckless, but vindictive. You abused your position of authority and endangered an entire community. This court sentences you to 15 years in state prison." There it was, 15 years. After the sentencing. As the deputies escorted her out, she turned her head slightly, just enough for our eyes to meet, and for a moment I saw it. Not guilt, not fear. Hatred. The kind of hatred that doesn't die behind bars. But I didn't flinch. Because for the first time, she wasn't the one holding the clipboard. I was. And the rules she'd lived by, rules are rules, finally caught up to her. Rebuilding. The insurance came through 3 months later. Not enough to replace everything, but enough to start again. Neighbors came together to help, even some who once sided with her. They brought lumber, paint, furniture, meals. It was strange how tragedy can strip away the poison and remind people what matters. When I broke ground on the new foundation, I drove a single nail into one of the first beams myself. I carved 3 words into it before the crew poured the walls. Let it go. Not because I forgave her, not yet, but because I refused to let her live rent-free in my head any longer. 6 months later, the new house stood where the ashes used to be. Baxter ran through the yard like he owned the place. The HOA? It was restructured under new leadership. The first thing they did was remove the cameras. Mike and I sat on the porch one evening, watching the sunset turn the Texas sky orange and gold. "You ever think about selling?" he asked. "Not a chance," I said, smiling. "This is home." He nodded. "You ever think about her?" I looked at the horizon for a long time before answering. "Every once in a while, but not the fire, not the trial." "What then?" he asked. "The moment the verdict was read. Because that's when I finally stopped being angry and started living again. Justice doesn't rebuild walls or replace memories, but it gives you space to breathe again. For a long time, I thought revenge would fix the pain Karen caused. But when I saw her led away in cuffs, I realized something deeper. Peace isn't about watching your enemy fall.
It's about choosing to stand when everything you love has burned to the ground. Karen taught me one final lesson. Power without empathy is just cruelty in disguise. And when cruelty finally answers to truth, it's not the flames that destroy us, it's what we choose to rise from them.